All of us there for this country last year, when Tinubu's led administration decided to demolish landmark beach and resort because they want to build Lagos to Calabar Coastal Highway, wey no get any economic value. That road now, you no go create any jobs for Nigerians to benefit. Now only to enrich Julius Berger or any other construction companies. I get me, we go do the road. But they decided to demolish landmark beach, where don't create almost 50,000 jobs, and it attracts tourism to Nigeria, which means it has economic value. They decided to demolish it because of road when they get economic value. But now the same Tinubu's led administration later tell us say that they have discovered one submarine cable that passed through the landmark beach where they demolished. Because of that reason, they are not going to build the road again past landmark beach. They decided to realign it to the original plan where it did before. That is the reason why many people believe that it was a witch hunt. Now, the man himself, who happens to be the CEO of Landmark Big, don't finally speak out. His name is Paul Onwuanibe. Make una listen to his reactions after demolition, how he felt about the whole issues. Listen to him. Nigeria. May Nigeria never happen to you, because if it happens to you, una won't go worst. Mostly, una well supported Tinubu government for the demolition.
What was your initial reaction to demolition?
So, I mean, let's put this into perspective. So Landmark consists of 3 parts.
Okay.
There's our business, our leisure, and our lifestyle, right? So effectively, what was demolished was our leisure business, right?
Okay.
Was the leisure element of Landmark, which, I mean, I'm not going to undermine that. It's a significant part of both our revenue and our physical infrastructure and our business, right? But it was leisure business. The initial reaction, these things are tough, right? You go through those 5 stages of grief. The first reaction when you hear about it is shock, right? And then that shock slowly turns into anger. Then you realize that anger doesn't really help, and you turn into, I think it's called bargaining. You begin to negotiate, right? And then, depending on how that comes out, you start feeling quite, I was going to use the term depressed, but not in the clinical term, but, you're concerned, and, you feel just deprived of natural justices, right? And then at some stage you have to accept it and move on, right? So I went through all those 5 stages. Obviously there were a lot of surprises, but at the end of the day, you say, first of all, you ask yourself, how does something like this just happen? Yeah. And then you go through those emotions and you think, well, surely common sense will prevail, right? And then when that doesn't prevail, you sort of figure out and say, so what am I going to do now, right? And then you either lie down and cry, or you get up and go.
Wow. So what were the financial and emotional impact? I mean, you mentioned that 6 years of investment wiped out in 6 hours.
yeah. So I mean, we choose the term 6 years, but to put this in perspective, right, this was my life's work. So it was 27 years of hunting, farming, and working, right? But that site we bought in 2006, 18 years ago. So it's not really, and we paid $17 million in 2006. Just to put things in perspective, 6 years was when we borrowed $30 million to develop that beach. So the pain and the hurt is that we spent $30 million developing the infrastructure on that beach. Half of that money you couldn't see with your eyes. I mean, it was underground. We had the water reticulation system. We had fiber optic cables. We had a 1.2 kilometer broad walk. Underneath it was the drainage, the water, the electricity. I mean, it was a world-class, world service structure that you couldn't even see with the eyes. So there's that pain that you've lost. And we borrowed $30 million abroad, so you obviously have that foreign exchange impact at the same time. You lose the income that was coming from there, which we're using to do so many different things, as well as paying our loan back. Then you've got to begin to try to understand the impact on the ecosystem of the business. And the reason why we're a business, leisure, lifestyle platform developer is that you come to one place and you can do everything. So whether it's a conference, watch a movie, eat a meal, do some work, sit on the beach, have a party. I mean, you could do literally anything. So a major part of that was lost, and it had knock-on effects on the other parts of the ecosystem. But the biggest tragedy of this were the businesses that were affected by the losses of revenue. So, I'll start with the formal and then the informal side. So the formal ones were obvious, all the businesses that were within the Landmark ecosystem and on the beach itself that were destroyed, they were destroyed without notice as well. Many of them didn't have time to remove TVs from their walls, fridges from the kitchens and stuff. I remember when Breeze was being demolished, there were guests in the pool, right? So it was tragic. There were over 160,000 members of the page. We had 9.2 billion naira of members' money in our accounts. We had contracts. When this thing was demolished, I had to negotiate. I think there were about 200, and we counted. We had to go through one by one, over 200 contracts. So whether it was things like FM contracts, supply of water, toilet roll, fumigation, light bulb maintenance, lifeguard contracts. We had a water cleaning system that cleaned the sea, and then the Norwegians did. We had signed a 3-year contract. We were in the second year of that 3-year contract. All these things were all prepaid and obligations. Sometimes you wish that there was a natural disaster, right? At least there's a force majeure. But when we talk about losses, it's a lot of people just see and say, well, you lost the infrastructure. But it was a lot more. The guy parking cars on the streets didn't have a job anymore. The person selling sweets at the gate. There were people who built hotels outside Landmark that were full every time because of this thing. I mean, to put into perspective, we had 4.5 million visitors a year. We employed 4,000 people. They say in Nigeria, the dependency factor is 16, right? So 4,000 people employ times 16. So we're still seeing the effects of this entire.
Wow. So it's so good having you talk about it, because we've had a lot of people come on our podcast to talk about the demolition, and it's a different thing hearing from the horse's mouth. Everyone had something to say, which some people said it's not possible for the government to go ahead and demolish without probably a year or two's notice. And then they come like maybe 7 days, they begin to make it more frequent. And then hearing you say there was no notice at all is...
We had a 7-day notice.
7 days. Wow.
Yeah.
That was short.
And one must be practical. So we had a 7-day notice. We were issued a 7-day notice. I mean, to be fair, it probably took another 2 or 3 months before it came. I was on my brother's 60th birthday. I was on a cruise in the Caribbean when I was being sent the Lagos State 7-day notice. It was something that was going around on social media. Someone sent it to me and said, "Is this true?" I didn't know by then, right? So nobody.
So there was no meeting, nothing whatsoever.
Till today, nobody picked up the phone, called me, or wrote to me personally and said, "By the way, here's the issue you have, right? Here's what's going to happen." A lot of it was over social media. So I saw that. Came back when we docked in Florida, flew straight here, and started trying to find out what was going on. So when you speak to people, you think, well, surely this is not going to happen, right? Because you ask a series of questions. The first one is why, right? The coastal road has been designated on Water Corporation Road. Why would it be changed? Right, so it was meant to be in front of us, not behind, right? So why will it be changed? The first thing you say. Second is just the socio-economic activity. We paid over 10 billion naira in taxes the year before. We employed so many people and so many visitors. We were the only business listed on the government's tourism website that was private. Everything else were government. So you just think, no, it's not going to happen. People are jockeying, and they say it's a coastal road, but the coast doesn't start at Landmark, right? Coast starts at Badagry. So you also have, so you say common sense prevail. That took 3 months. Obviously, there was a lot of conversations, but the day it actually started was quite absurd. Was painful. Yeah, was strange.
I'm actually feeling pain listening to you now.
We had a beach hotel, and people were sleeping in the hotel when the demolition started. We didn't have time to take the fridges from the rooms, the TVs from the walls, the mattresses from the beds, the pictures on the walls. You didn't have time to take the plates from the kitchen. I mean, that's how tragic it was. And, one would have thought.
Wow. So what's your road to recovery?
So, they say, success in life is not determined by the good things you do and the accolades you receive. They're determined by the challenges you face and how you overcome them, right? Because that's the thing that actually does count. And, believe me, Nigeria, Africa, and the world generally, but, they're tougher in Nigeria than anywhere else. But Nigeria presents a whole unique set of challenges and opportunities, And one of the things I learned when I was in school was, a crisis, never waste a crisis, because a crisis is a good time for opportunity. The other side of a challenge is an opportunity. So one has to figure out how to overcome its challenges and figure out what next. So we spent the last 6 months obviously doing that. You know, my mother used to say when we were young is put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket carefully, right? And you know, it made sense because everybody says don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? And my mother said, you see, this is our family, all our love, everything is here, right? We're going to just watch it carefully and take care of it. So she was always very possessive about things that came into the family to disrupt us, right? So when people like I had girlfriends or my sister had boyfriends, you know, she was like, who are these people? Right? Anyway, so I learned life that way, about putting all your eggs in one basket and watching that basket carefully, because I grew up in that way. And that's what Landmark is all about. You know, when we sold our service office business across Africa, that's the history of why it was called Landmark Africa. We took all the money and we sold it for gosh, I think it was just over $20 million, all the money, and put on the site. Plus the money we borrowed to build the site, plus the money we brought into the country from investors to buy the land. Everything was concentrated. And then we said, see this basket? We're going to watch it carefully, right? So when something like this happens, you realize that, you know, maybe mom was wrong. Maybe you ought to not put all your eggs in one basket. So going back to your question, what's the future? So 3 things. So one is we have to do some geographic diversification. We have to figure out where to go. So when something like this or anything happens, it doesn't affect you in such a devastating way. You know, when I count the losses of what has happened with the demolition of the beach, on the face of it, it sounds like a $30 million loss, but it's not. I mean, this is probably $60, $70, $80 million loss. And then on the outside as well, all the people around and the effect is probably, you know, $200 to $300 million
That's true.
of other people's investments as well. So we have to diversify geographically. You know, I talked about don't waste an opportunity, don't waste a crisis, and make sure there's an opportunity on it. You know, I had calls from 3 different presidents, African presidents, during this crisis. I didn't know them from anywhere. They literally found through their consuls, found me, made the call, say, sorry, I hear what happened. Tell me a little bit more about it. Are you willing to come to a country like ours?
Oh, wow.
So that's an opportunity in itself. So there's one of those countries we're going to relocate to. Then I also had calls from several governors in Nigeria saying, you know, I think you should come and do this in this city. It never happened to you here, right? It may happen to you in Lagos, but it's not going to happen here. So we had 12 of those, right? So we're selecting 3. And we've been going through that process over the last 6 months. So we're going to have some diversification. We're going to diversify to 2 other African countries. We're going to go into 3 different states. We're going to move our Nigeria HQ location out of Lagos. And we're going to move our entire sort of events and tourism platform out of Nigeria. And then we're going to try to build and grow from there. We want to create a sort of West African footprint for tourism, leisure, and events. So you can have music festivals, school festivals, sports festivals. We can connect these places by cruise ships. We can really make Africa buzz in Africa for Africans. So we've worked on that. We're in the closing stages of it. We're raising some funds as well to make sure that we can finance it. And as for our existing business in Landmark Lagos, you know, as I said, it was the most visited destination in West Africa. We need to find a way to replace the leisure element that we lost and recreate the business leisure lifestyle. We still have the business and the lifestyle. We need to recover financially as well. We're excited. The future is bright. You know, look, what happened was a disaster of serious proportions, but you know, the truth is nobody died. You know, we've had disasters before. We've had challenges before. This maybe was the most publicly played out one, but you know, when we had our 9/11 tragedy, people died. People I worked with died. You know, we had a tragedy in Libya during the war. People I worked with died. So this one, nobody died. There's a lot of commercial losses, the biggest financial loss that we've received ever in our history, right? But from a financial point of view, you can replace finances, you can't replace lives.
That's true.